All right, Dr. Monroe, take it away.
Okay, we call this meeting of the Winterville Town Planning and Zoning Board for August 17th, 2020 to order. Welcome everyone to our August meeting. Appreciate everyone being here and being a part of this process. Moving to our agenda, do we have any requests for excused absences?
Yes, sir, Chairman. Mr. Willie Hines has requested having some health issues, so based on that, he asked for excused absence.
Okay, we have a member requesting excused absence. What is the pleasure of the board?
I move to make a motion to excuse Mr. Hines. Mike Weldon.
I'll second.
Doug Killian, second.
Okay, we had Mr. Rodney Fleming seconded before you, Mr. Killian, so you lost the race.
Okay, we have it moved and properly second. All those in favor, aye.
Dr. Monroe, we're going to let...
I'm sorry, we got to do the roll call. Sorry.
Yeah, we're going to let Don do the roll call.
Sorry, folks. Mr. Monroe?
Okay.
Dr. Monroe?
Aye.
Mr. Killian? Mr. Killian?
Can't hear Don.
Yeah.
You cannot hear Don? Okay, you want me to do it? I'll poll everybody then. Since...
Here, let me give you.
Thank you.
Hold on one second. Let us get organized for a second, guys.
Maybe he can give us a thumbs up.
Okay, so we're going to start over on that. So we had a motion and a second. Polling for the approval of the excused absence, Dr. Gregory Monroe.
Aye.
Mr. Douglas Killian.
Aye.
Mr. Robert Briley.
He's muted.
Make sure you're unmuted, guys. All right, Mr.
Aye.
Ms. Peggy Claiborne.
Yes.
Ms. Margie Crawford.
Aye.
Mr. Rodney Fleming.
Aye.
Ms. Darlene Gardner.
Aye.
Mr. Michael Weldon.
Aye.
And Mr. Tucker Moore.
Aye.
All right, that's it.
Okay, so we excuse Mr. Hines for tonight's meeting. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda for tonight. You received this in your packet from the staff. What is the pleasure of the board?
Doug Killian, motion to approve.
Second.
Mike Weldon, second.
Okay, it's been moved and properly second. Please respond to your roll call.
Dr. Gregory Monroe.
Aye.
Mr. Douglas Killian.
Aye.
Mr. Robert Briley.
Aye.
Ms. Peggy Claiborne.
Aye.
Ms. Margie Crawford.
Aye.
Mr. Rodney Fleming.
Aye.
Ms. Darlene Gardner.
Aye.
Mr. Michael Weldon.
Aye.
And Mr. Tucker Moore.
Aye.
The agenda stands approved. The next item, the approval of the minutes from the July regular meeting. Also received in your packet, board packet. What is the pleasure of the board?
Motion to approve.
Ms. Peggy Claiborne's motion.
Second.
Ms. Margie Crawford, second.
Okay, it's been moved and properly second. Please vote accordingly upon the roll call.
Dr. Gregory Monroe.
Aye.
Mr. Douglas Killian.
Aye.
Mr. Robert Briley.
Aye.
Ms. Peggy Claiborne.
Aye.
Ms. Margie Crawford.
Aye.
Mr. Rodney Fleming.
Aye.
Ms. Darlene Gardner.
Aye.
Mr. Michael Weldon.
Aye.
And Mr. Tucker Moore.
Aye.
Okay. The next item is the election of officers, and that will be your chair and vice chair.
Doug Killian, I make a motion that Greg Monroe be nominated as chair.
Wyatt Riley, I'll second.
Who's Greg?
So we have a motion on the floor for for Dr. Gregory Monroe to be the chair, and second.
Are there any other nominations? Okay, we close the nominations for chair. All those in favor of Dr. Gregory Monroe as chair, vote upon your name on the roll call.
Dr. Gregory Monroe,
Aye.
Mr. Douglas Killian,
Aye.
Mr. Robert Riley,
Aye.
Ms. Peggy Claiborne,
Aye.
Ms. Margie Crawford,
Aye.
Mr. Ronnie Fleming,
Aye.
Ms. Darlene Gardner,
Aye.
Mr. Michael Weldon,
Aye.
and Mr. Tucker Moore.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate your vote of confidence. The next item order is for vice chair. We open the floor for nomination for vice chair.
Mike Weldon, I nominate Doug Killian for vice chair.
The second that.
Ms. Peggy Claiborne, second.
Are there any other nominations for vice chair? We close the nomination. We have a motion for Doug Killian as vice chair and seconded. Please vote accordingly upon roll call.
Dr. Gregory Monroe,
Aye.
Mr. Douglas Killian,
Aye.
Mr. Robert Riley,
Aye.
Ms. Peggy Claiborne,
Aye.
Ms. Margie Crawford,
Aye.
Mr. Ronnie Fleming,
Aye.
Ms. Darlene Gardner,
Aye.
Mr. Michael Weldon,
Aye.
and Mr. Tucker Moore.
Aye.
Okay. It's been approved that Doug Killian, congratulations, and we appreciate you serving Mr. Killian as vice chair. Would you like to have any comments, Mr. Killian?
Whoa, I just lost everything.
He shared his screen.
Okay.
Okay.
Greg, I do have a question, Greg.
That was about your nomination or your election into vice chair.
No.
Okay. All right. So we'll move on to the next item on the agenda. New business.
Point of order, Greg. I can't hear Peggy, Marjorie, or
And we'll try to make sure that you can hear them. If not, I will definitely relay anything they say. If they have any poignant comments, we'll make sure that their microphones are picking up. It's just these microphones, for whatever reason, are really sensitive, so they have to be right up on top of it. So we'll make sure. But if I can tell pretty much from my seat and Don's from his seat if they're picking up, so we'll make sure they're heard. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Anything else? Okay. So we'll move on. New business. Our first item, F&A Construction LLC rezoning request. Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Dr. Monroe. So you guys will remember last month the applicant F&A Construction LLC did submit a rezoning request. They requested to table it. There was reasons behind that, but there was a portion of that wasn't I guess cohesive with the comprehensive land use plan, so they went back into the drawing board and actually removed that from their rezoning request, and we'll go over that more in detail. So totally different rezoning request as far as the total tract. It's just going to be part of the tract, and we'll move forward now, and I'll go through the whole request and then answer any questions you guys have. So I've stated the applicant's name, F&A Construction. The location is the northeast corner of Lori Ellis Road and Otar Road. Parcel number there is 55092. It's a 5.932 acres tract. That's a smaller portion of a larger 16 acre tract. The current zoning is AR. Proposed zoning district is neighborhood commercial. And the future land use category is a neighborhood center, and I'll go over that a little bit more in detail. The adjacent property owners were mailed notification of this rezoning request on August 7th, and notification was posted back in June 30th to be more specific, on site. So you can see your parcel there outlined in blue. There's just an overlay of the rezoning map, so you can tell the left portion of it, the kind of funky, whatever shape that is, polygon right there. So the major portion to the right is not up for rezoning right now. That will be left AR moving forward. So again, highlighted in yellow, that's the portion we're looking at. Just one of the major things to note on this piece of property is that stream feature there that's associated with Fork Swamp. It's a tributary coming off of, but it is a buffered stream, and you can tell the way it dissects this property. So that triangle piece on the northern side, and then obviously coming down on the eastern edge, there's a triangle piece that's kind of left out there hanging. So the buffer really kind of limits your uses on this. Just wanted to note that as an environmental concern. Here's a picture of the property, just looking at it from that intersection, looking back on it. I think they just took off tobacco of that property, so they've been farming this. So current zoning, as I stated before, is agricultural residential. The existing land use map is vacant agricultural land. So here's our future land use plan. You can see this whole intersection has been denoted with the neighborhood center. So it's a little bit, doesn't quite match up with the rezoning request, but that's kind of par for the course when you're looking at an intersection with kind of not cohesive or not equal parcels. But the neighborhood center, basically the future land use character area and the comprehensive land use plan states that it's context appropriate commercial, retail, services, professional offices, and occasionally residential located at key intersections and crossroads that serve the greater or the general neighborhoods around them. Small lot residential or patio homes and or attached residential could be part of this mix. So the neighborhood center, the big thing we always like to look at is potential zoning. So you see GB and CN, so general business, and then that commercial neighborhood, the main ones listed under the general character and the type of potential zoning. But the general character of these areas would be small scale retail, restaurants, and offices. So you can see a kind of an example there in your right hand corner. So when every time we look at our rezonings, we obviously want to look at our impacts and policy analysis in our land use plan. So going there, the first one we look at is encouraging a balanced tax base while managing growth. So that really just speaks to encouraging non-residential growth in the form of retail, restaurants, and professional offices and industrial development. So that's tailor fit for this type of proposed zoning. Policy under number 2, is encourage walkable and or mixed use development. So under the walkability part of our plan, we really want to see small scale office services and restaurants allowed in urban neighborhood areas and locations with good access. So I'm sorry, does somebody have a question? Okay, so looking at those areas with good access, intersections, obviously that's where your access is probably the most is the best. So under economic development portion of our policy analysis, we look at supporting Winterville as a transformation from a bedroom community into a neighborhood community or neighboring community of Greenville, not just that bedroom community. Want to focus on business recruitment, expansion, and retention. So basically, we're just wanting to encourage and support local businesses. But with that being said, planning staff finds the request is reasonable and in public interest because the proposed zoning district is compatible with surrounding land uses and the future land use plan. Staff recommends amending, I'm sorry, that should not be in there. That was a copy and paste error. But staff recommends approval of the request from AR to Central Neighborhood. So the rezoning process, right now, obviously you guys are seeing it, and we'll hear any public comments. That I will say that I don't have any written submittals like we requested from our notifications, both our adjacent property notifications and our website. So we didn't get any written notification for or against the rezoning. The Planning and Zoning Board will then make a recommendation to council, and council will hold a public hearing, which will be scheduled at the next council meeting. So now I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Chair, for public comment session, and I will note that Mr. Scott Anderson with Art Consultant is available for any questions as well, and if he wants to talk.
Okay, so we give space now for anyone to have public comments regarding this request before the Winterville Planning and Zoning Board.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. My name is Scott Anderson, and I appreciate your time tonight to hear this request. I think Brian did a great job of presenting our request to you. We, as well as the property owners, have worked hard with city staff, our town staff, to make sure that this request is in compliance with the land use plan and that it's compatible with the surrounding uses. Brian mentioned this site has got good access onto two roads that have available capacity to handle this type of development. We think that the scale of this request is appropriate for the neighborhood and can provide good support and provide commercial, restaurant, office spaces to support the surrounding neighborhoods. As Brian mentioned, there's a ditch along the north side of this property, as well as one that kind of bisects through the property, and that is kind of why that triangular shape is the way it is at the top. Is that ditch will ultimately be the property line for this commercial area. But those ditches are also buffered streams, so they will be a vegetated buffer will be provided along those streams. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Scott, I have one. Doug Killian. Isn't there a sewer lift pump station in there, in that property someplace?
It's actually, if you're looking at the image that's on the screen, yep, it's right there, that square. So it's actually on the property to the north of us.
Thank you.
Not 100% sure, but I think they've already provided crossing for that. Is that right, Scott? Do you know if that's?
Yeah, that's correct. There's a manhole that is stubbed from that pump station right across the stream to our property.
Brian, I have some questions for you, but I don't want to interrupt Scott.
Are there any other public comments at this time? Comments and questions from the board?
Yes, I have a question. Brian, would you clarify for me, please? There's confusing, there's a little bit of confusion here. The proposed zoning district is CN, which is neighborhood commercial. That is part of the zoning law, or the zoning ordinance. And we're not confusing that with the neighborhood center, which is part of the land use. Because there are two different items. One allows residential and one does not. I want to make sure that we're dealing with one that does not. So the proposed neighborhood commercial does not allow any residential development in that property, correct?
Yeah, and I can totally see the confusion there. The future land use, with the similarity of the character area and the zoning designation, the character area does talk about some appropriate residential stuff, but you're correct. With the proposed zoning district, it would be just small scale retail and business. That's right.
Thank you.
Other comments or questions from the board? Okay. There being no further public comment, no comments from the board, what is the pleasure of the board regarding the F&A request?
Rodney Fleming, I so move.
So Mr. Rodney Fleming has so moved,
I'll second that.
and Ms. Peggy Clybourne is second.
Okay, it's been moved in properly second. Please vote your pleasure upon roll call.
Dr. Gregory Monroe,
Aye.
Mr. Douglas Killian,
Aye.
Mr. Robert Briley,
Aye.
Ms. Peggy Clybourne,
Aye.
Ms. Margie Crawford,
Aye.
Mr. Rodney Fleming,
Aye.
Ms. Darlene Gardner,
Aye.
Mr. Michael Weldon,
Aye.
and Mr. Tucker Moore.
Aye.
All right, the recommendation to town council has been approved. Item 2, R&E Davenport Jr. FLP rezoning.
Sorry, let me catch back up here. All right, so getting to R.E. Davenport Jr. property, the rezoning request is, let's see here. So we have a request, why is so the applicant is Mr. R.E. Davenport, R.E. Davenport property. I think it's a family limited partnership. So the location is the intersection of 903 and NC 11 South. That's just west of downtown. Parcel number 5590, and the site data is 43.69 acres. Current zoning, agricultural residential. Proposed zoning, general business. And that current land use character area is mixed use center. The adjacent property owners were mailed notification of the rezoning request on August 7th. And notification was posted on this site July 31st. So there's the property outlined in blue there, so you can see the bigger portion on the north side and then the small kind of flag-shaped lot on the south side. So there's a overlay of just the rezoning, the survey. You can see it again just outlined in blue. Current zoning is agricultural residential, and this one's kind of peculiar because it's got two small areas within that parcel that are already zoned general business. You can see those on the corner of the intersection there on both sides of that north and south corner. So the existing land use map is just vacant agricultural land right now. So there's a picture of the property. You're seeing it's just being farmed at this point. And that's the southern portion going down south. And so again, just farmland. So the future land use plan. So you're seeing there that the mixed use character area. So mixed use center is a mix of commercial, retail, restaurants, service-oriented businesses, and a variety of residential options. But it's primarily going to be offices. Primarily that commercial feel. So our breakdown of the mixed-use center, our potential zoning, if you look down here, you're going to see CB with possibly MR and GB. So all those are our big three categories there in that commercial realm. But mixed-use centers allow flexibility to respond to market demands, and emphasizing the form of development over use or intensity. So these areas are made are made for people and have just a little hustle and bustle with some small town hospitality mixed in. And you can see some just kind of examples over on the right side what it could potentially look like. So looking at our impact and policy analysis and land use. So again, it's not just going to be akin to our last one. We're looking at encouraging a balanced tax base while managing growth, which would mean encouraging that non-residential growth in the form of retail, restaurants, and professional offices and industrial development. Trying to, again, just improve self-sufficiency within Winterville and reduce that retail leakage to our surrounding communities to give us that transformation from just being a bedroom community to being a neighboring community. Again, trying to focus on business recruitment, expansion, and retention. This would give us an opportunity to encourage and support local business. So this would, planning staff does find the request is reasonable and in the public interest because the proposed zoning district is compatible with surrounding land uses and future land use plan. Sorry about another typo there. It should be 40.69 acres, not 2.99 acres, but staff does recommend approval of the request to rezone 40.69 acres to general business from agricultural residential. Public comments will now be entertained by Planning and Zoning Board, and then this board would make a recommendation to council, which will hold a public hearing, which will be scheduled at the next meeting. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Chairman, for a public comment session. I will note I got one written comment from an adjacent property owner, and if you allow me, I'll read that when you're ready.
Okay, do we have anyone else with public online or in the building that have public comments at this time? If no, we will review the written notice. Mr. Jones.
Okay, yeah, and there are none present within the assembly room, so I don't know if there are some phone-ins online. I don't know if they would be willing to speak, but I haven't, like I said, I haven't gotten any other written ones. But Mr. Thomas McLawhorn is adjacent property owner. His parcels are 77582 and 77585. Mr. McLawhorn writes, I enthusiastically support Mr. Davenport's rezoning request. For some time, I have believed this property is the key to new business development on the west side of Highway 11 along 903. I view this as an opportunity to stimulate desirable, sustainable new development at the west side entrance to Winterville Central Business District and to spur the quality of growth that will contribute to the long-term prosperity of the total community. End quote.
Yep. There being no other public comment, we will comments and questions from the board. Brian, looking at this particular property, I'm assuming if the council approves the rezoning or upon our recommendation, will there also have to be some consideration at that intersection for whatever development happens? Because I know where they did some road constructions at that little cut through that they just finished building. Will that require additional intersection work?
That will be considered at site plan review. DOT obviously is going to be heavily involved. So they're going to that new super street design where they're kind of not allowing left-hand turns, and there's going to be right-hand turns. So I don't know what the ultimate plans are for that intersection. I haven't heard of anything, but yes, they would definitely, DOT is going to be involved in any type of site plan development. They will review and then implement any type of requirements on the developer.
Okay, and then just for clarity, that particular intersection, there's the land, and then there's like a house across the street from that. Was that the gentleman that was in support of the rezoning, or is that somewhere different?
So the gentleman in support would be on the south side, and he'd be on the southwest side of the property. So you can see actually parcels, this 77584 and 77585, and I think they own one of these two right here, and then I think some family land too. So I'm pretty sure he's involved in pretty much all of these properties here.
Okay, yeah, because at that corner, right, I mean, well, you can't see my mouse, but yes, there was like a lot, isn't there a resident there now, or?
Yeah, I think, if I'm not mistaken, that's the house that Mr. Davenport, grew up in.
Okay.
So, and apparently he's got it rented out right now, but, yeah, eventually I would assume that house would no longer be there.
Oh, okay, all right, so that is a part of it, all right, okay. Are there any other questions or comment from the board? All right, so what is the pleasure of the board regarding the land rezoning request?
Miss Margie Crawford's motion to approve and Miss Peggy Clybourne second.
Okay, we have it moved and properly second. So please vote your pleasure on the calling of your roll call.
Dr. Gregory Monroe,
Aye.
Mr. Douglas Killian,
Aye.
Mr. Robert Briley,
Aye.
Miss Peggy Clybourne, Miss Margie Crawford, Mr. Rondi Fleming,
Aye.
Miss Darlene Gardner,
Aye.
Mr. Michael Weldon,
Aye.
and Mr. Tucker Moore.
And rezoning request has been approved to submit to town council for further actions. Staff report.
So I don't have much for you, Mr. Chairman, but just want to thank you guys as a whole board for being patient during all this. I know this is trying times we're going through, so really appreciate you guys helping this to make this easy to hold these meetings. I will say we've got some zoning ordinances coming up. I know I've kind of promised that a couple months now, but we're going to have a lengthy meeting coming up, maybe not next month, or it'll be within the next 2 months, depending on how I can get it together. But we're going to have a lengthy meeting going over some zoning ordinance amendments and subdivision amendments and all that stuff. So just to get you prepared for that, but we got to be in compliance with state statutes to get our zoning ordinance up to code. Other than that, we're staying busy in our office, writing plenty of zoning permits for new residential construction. So we're still seeing a lot of that going on in town. I expect to see that increase with Bill Clark's neighborhood coming online on Worthington Road soon. But other than that, it's business as usual, and I'll answer any questions you guys have for me. Other than that, that's all I got.
Thank you. Comments or questions from the board?
Ryan, Doug Killian. Any time frame on Eli's Ridge down there in Worthington Road?
I'm sorry, will you repeat the question?
Is there any time frame, or have you heard any, when it'll be opening up for sale lots and?
I don't know the exact time frame, but I would say it's hard to say because they're putting in the lift station down there right now, and that's a pretty big project. That's probably going to be a month-long or better project, but they have submitted their application for annexation, which usually means they're really close. They usually don't want to start paying taxes on property if they're not going to sell it. So, but I would say probably within the next, conservatively, I would say 3 months out, you'll probably see a final plat come before this board.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions, comments, or matters that need to be brought before this board? Okay, if not, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I so move.
Mr. Rondi Fleming has motion, sorry.
Do we have a second?
Doug Killian, I'll say.
second.
Okay, we got 2 seconds. All right. Do we need a roll call for this, Brian?
I feel comfortable if we say all in favor.
All in Thank you, everyone. We'll see you next month.
Thank you, guys.
All right.
Maybe take these with us and use them the next time.
Yes, take those with you. They're yours.